All right, let's go ahead and get started. Hope everybody's having a great day. This is the 5-point plan for better trained shop employees. The reason I thought this would be a great webinar is that everybody's always wanting or asking me, how do we train employees and get them better? So I thought this would make a great topic. All right, so my name is Marshall Atkinson, and I included my address here, marshall@inksoft.com. If we're going to have a question and answer session at the end of this, and I'm not going to be able to answer everybody's questions. I'll try to find the ones that are most relevant. So if I don't get to yours, please email me and I'll be happy to answer yours. You can always call me also at 480-351-0740. I'm in Phoenix, so depending on where you are, that could be an hour or up to 3 hours away. So just take note of that. So today's objective, we're going to explore methods to build an employee training program that works for any position or shop. I'm not going to get into details about how to train a press operator or how to train a customer service rep or a salesperson. I might talk about those positions and give you some tips or ideas, but this isn't going to be how to train somebody to run a press or work in receiving or that kind of thing. But what we're going to kind of do is outline some ideas that you can use to build a shop training program for how you do things in your shop. Okay, so what we want to do is we're going to go from zero to hero and build a training program that works. And here's a great quote that I thought was perfect for this session, which is, we do not rise to the level of our expectations, we fall to the level of our training. And I thought this was just wonderful. I read this the other day. And one of the things every shop always wants is they want to get to the next level. They want to be the best in their city or in the industry. But a lot of times we just put that pressure on our shop employees, but we don't really do anything to help achieve that goal. So if you think about, for instance, a baseball team, right? When they have practice, how many times do you think they practice that shortstop to second base to first base double play? They probably do that 100 times a week. I mean, it's just crazy. But in our own businesses, all of the tasks that we do, we don't really talk about what needs to happen and how to do it and how can we perfect it. And this is why training is such a key component of that, is that we all have the expectation of getting better, but what we really don't do is get to that level of training that we need. So it's all about growth. And that's where the fun comes in, because I haven't met a shop owner yet that is happy with where they are. They always want to get bigger. They always want to get to be the bad guy on the block. But the fun is building that. And what you need to do that is great employees. So let's talk about training. So one of the first things that I want to discuss is the 3 people rule. So when we talk about training, there are key things that have to happen in your shop. You have to be able to put an order in. You have to be able to decorate something. You got to be able to design or digitize. You got to be able to purchase goods. You got to be able to receive inventory. You got to do screens, or you got to be able to run the presses. So we're, on a manual or an auto, or maybe it's an embroidery machine or a heat press. There's all these kind of things you got to do. You got to be able to ship. So usually, especially with smaller shops, that's either one person or maybe one person does all these things. And then as your shop grows, we need to include more people. But at a certain level, I like to have at least 3 people, and if you're a smaller shop, maybe 2, know how to do all the key tasks in your business. So the main person that does that, they can go on vacation. They can call in sick. They can, or maybe something happens to them and they move away, and you're not just stuck where you don't have an artist that knows how to do simulated process, or you don't have a guy that's your best auto printer and he's the only one that knows how to print on polyester, or maybe you've got a salesperson, you only got one person and he's the only one bringing in business. We need to have it 2 or 3 people that allows us to not be so dependent on the people that work for us, but also allows us to grow, okay? So when you want to get that new account, or you're trying to get more business, and we project that we're going to see 20 or 30% growth next year, what does that mean for in production? Well, we need to have another shift, or we need to add another press. Well, who's going to be doing that if we haven't already trained our people? So that's one of the things. So when you're thinking about your employees in your shop, think about who is already a good fit, who might already think about, I'd like to learn how to do that. And then you build this program around them. So the 3 people rules are really important. The next thing to really think about is that learning is usually really hard and it's scary for people. Nobody comes to this industry knowing how to do all the things that we do. And if you're a shop that's just basically you and a couple other people, you do a lot of things and you really taught yourself, okay? When we have to train somebody, okay, it seems really daunting because you do it so well, okay? So nobody wants to put themselves in a position to fail, because it's really hard to say, hey, I don't know how to do something, or I know if I don't learn that, I'm going to get fired. So nobody raises their hand when it comes to, hey, who wants to be a press operator? Or who wants to learn how to hoop Carhartt jackets or whatever? Nobody raises their hand for that because they know it could be a big disaster if they don't do it right. So we have to make sure that we're allowing people to raise their hand and know that, hey, we're going to show you how to do it, and we're going to make sure that it's not scary to learn this stuff, okay? So employee engagement is the ability to do things. So in any shop, you want really engaged employees. That means they know what to do, they can do it well, they're always looking about how to do things better, okay? If you have engaged employees, you've got really great quality, okay? If you're having quality problems with your decoration or maybe your art or whatever, you don't have engagement with your employees. They're just not doing everything right, okay? So we have to give them the training so they have the ability to do what's needed, okay? And so one of the things that we really need to focus on is figuring that part out. And so once you determine, hey, this person wants to learn to be a press operator, how do we get there? Okay, we get there by allowing them the opportunity to do it, and then we give them the opportunity by giving them some training, okay? And what you want in your shop is people hungry for that information, okay? So a lot of times when we talk to our staff, they, you know, hey, what do you want to do? Maybe it comes up in a performance review. They're happy with the way they are, okay? To me, that's kind of a dormant stage, okay? What we want to do is we want to give more people the opportunity, and we want to get them hungry to learn, hungry to achieve things, and grow with the business, because that allows them to be able to have more value. You trust them more. Maybe you can pay them more when they learn some more skills. So what we want to do always is hire for attitude, train for skill, okay? Which means we're looking for those people that are hungry to move up, okay? So that's really key. So if you've got people who really don't want to learn, okay, they don't want to grow. So if you're a company that's focused on growth, focused on getting to the next level, maybe these people aren't the people for you, and you might want to take a harder look at them. So in your businesses, what we want to develop is the culture of continuous learning. which means that we're always learning something new. We're always looking out for the next new technique. You know, I'm going to try discharge or water-based ink, or I'm going to try applique, or I'm going to learn how to do puff embroidery, or hey, how small letters and type can we print or embroider, or how should we do can we do a heat press and then do can we do a digital print and then heat press foil on top of it? What can we do? Just invent things. And that drives this learning, and that drives people to get engaged in what they're doing. And once you learn how to do all this stuff, then you can sell it to your customers, because now you've learned something new and you've maybe developed a new revenue stream for your business. So that's what's really going to drive your growth, is a continuous learning culture with employees that are hungry for information. So how do we do it? The best thing to do it is to break things up into tiny little chunks, little tidbits of easily digestible information that people can retain. So you're not trying to learn every single thing there is to know about something. We just start off with, how do we load a shirt on a platen? That's the first step. How do you put a shirt on the board? Or how do you hoop a polo? Okay, you don't get into how do we change threads and all those kind of needle sizes, or you know, what's polyester ink, or how to mix stuff, or what's the difference between a 110 mesh and a 230 mesh. You don't even start with that. You start with basic small little things. Okay, so that's the most important thing when we get going, is we're going to break this into small chunks, and we want to set some goals. Okay, and we want to write a plan. So here's a little phrase for you guys: a goal without a plan is just a wish. Okay, I've been saying this for years. So if you want more press operators, if you want better trained customer service staff, if you want your more people to help with invoicing, okay, you have to develop the plan to get that done and make that into a SMART goal. Okay, a SMART goal, if you remember, is just an acronym. It's SMART. It's specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. So what we want to be doing is, we need more press operators. Okay, well, how many do we need? We need 2. What's a realistic timeline for training? Maybe 3 months. Here's how we're going to break it up. We're going to do every Wednesday and Friday, we're going to have a training session. And what you want to do is you want to build your whole plan into an achievable calendar-based action of exactly what you want to do. And you're going to develop it with learning sessions in each one. So they're going to learn this on this day and something else on the next day. So at the end of this time period, they're a fully trained employee or whatever in whatever program or task or skill that you're trying to give them. Okay, so we're going to write those content and learning goals out into an action plan. Okay, so if for instance, let's say that you need to be a press operator. That's the training that you're giving somebody. Okay, so what exactly are they going to learn? They're going to learn how to load a shirt. They're going to learn how the interface works on their press. They're going to probably start off as a manual printer. So we're going to talk about squeegee durometer and angle and pressure and the different mesh types. And we're going to talk about ink. We're going to talk about all this stuff, right? Can you just throw all this information at them at once? No, you need to break it up into short 10 to 30 minute classes. Okay, so for 10 to 30 minutes, we're going to talk about, and you're going to do loading shirts on a press, or we're going to give them a little small left chest black ink job to print. Okay, so it's just an easy thing to do. They're going to learn how to load the shirt and then pull the squeegee. We're not going to go over everything. We're just going over tiny little things. Okay, and that's going to allow them to learn. Okay, so how do we do that? If we want Fred to have this knowledge, we have to schedule Fred time doing that activity. So we're going to put it on an actual calendar. Wednesday at 2 o'clock, Fred is doing this. Schedule it just like an appointment. he's going to be doing this. So if normally Fred was reclaiming screens, or normally Fred was working, doing something else, somebody else has to be doing his job, right? So it's really important that you kind of look at everything and kind of switch everything around so it happens the way it's supposed to happen. And that way we're not 2 months down the line going, hey, we needed more press operators, but we never got around to training them, okay? When you schedule it on a calendar and you're only doing 10 to 30 minutes at a time, what happens is you're consistently doing what you need to do, right? So here's the other key thing with the small chunks idea is that you want to master every step before advancing to the next, okay? So for our press operator, for example, if they can't load a shirt straight, there's no sense teaching them how to pull a squeegee, okay? So how do we load a shirt, okay? It's an easy thing to do is to take any t-shirt and put a vertical line right down the middle with a piece of masking tape and horizontal lines at the top and the bottom with tape so they're perpendicular to each other. And then they just practice loading that shirt on a platen so it's vertical and horizontal aligned on the platen, and you can tell when it's off. So most people, when they learn to load a shirt, you know, maybe their left or the right hand is dominant, and then when they're loading it on the platen, they need to learn how to make sure it's parallel movement onto the platen, and that way when you pull the shirt back to have the collar drop off the edge of the platen, it's exactly parallel, it's exactly perpendicular to where it needs to be, and it's easy to see because you've got these big, huge things of tape on it, okay? And so when they get consistent about that, then we can talk about going to the next step, which could be a simple one color left chest print to print, or whatever you have on your learning plan, okay? So it's really about mastering each step before you go to the next, okay? And you've got all of this written out, so you know it's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3, here's step 4. These are all planned out, and you don't really have to plan them. So, you know, Fred, this is what he's learning this day, and this, you know, the next week it's something different. Maybe it's just a training session that's planned, and you know what if he's accomplished that or not before he goes to the next, and that way you don't have to redo your calendar if he's a little slower learning, okay? Next is kind of the hands-on works best kind of idea, all right? So people learn by doing, okay? Just like when you learned to drive your car, ride a bicycle, bake lasagna, you can read all the books that you want to read, you can watch videos and all that kind of stuff. The only way you learned is by actually doing it, okay? You're not going to learn anything just by talking about it in the break room or in a meeting room. The only way you're going to learn stuff is by actually doing it, which means that person needs time doing it. It also means that they're going to goof stuff up, right? So if you don't want that new person to mess up that embroidery job on those Patagonia jackets, or maybe they're going to misprint a whole bunch of hoodies, you don't get the rookie people to learn on those jobs, okay? Find some scrap t-shirts, find some stuff that doesn't cost as much, schedule some new employee training jobs on jobs that maybe don't cost as much or they're simpler. And so if they make a mistake, it's not really such a financial disaster for you. But what you need to do is you just need to be okay with the idea that these people are going to make mistakes. And for a lot of managers, this is a huge obstacle to overcome because they know that mistakes cost money, and that's why they never let people train, is because they're worried about how much at the end of the week or the day or whatever those mistakes will add up. So they only let the veteran people do stuff, and then the new people or the people that need to get the training, they never get the time, and so because we're always worried about mistakes. So just be comfortable with the fact that we're going to make mistakes. You're going to have somebody helping them, so maybe that mitigates that a little bit. But just know that It's going to happen and it'll be okay. Okay. So it's the same deal. So people need the opportunity to drive the car. And we also want to use the power of stories. So if you have used training before and you've got people in your company that one time did something else, like for one time they were an embroidery trimmer, or they worked in the screen room and, you know, reclaiming screens, and now they're a press operator, or maybe you've got a press operator who's now a manager, or maybe you've got the person who came in to help file and now they're invoicing. Those are all great stories that you can tell for newer employees or people that you want to show, hey, we do more in this company than just hire you and you're stuck in this position. So the power of stories gets people interested in it, okay? And then you can have that person tell, yeah, it took me 3 months. I learned how to do this. These are the things that I learned. It was difficult. I made some mistakes, that kind of stuff, and get everybody involved. And the power of stories works great because it puts a human kind of spin on your training program, and it shows kind of a big picture of where a person who doesn't have that skill could go. So now they were here, now they're doing this. Maybe they're making more money, or maybe they've got a raise or a new title. So it really shows what's going on. So the power of stories is super important. So here's some incentives and reasons for doing training and what you can do with people. First off is the obvious thing is you learn a new skill, you can get paid more money, okay? So it doesn't always have to be about money, because a lot of times we're training not just in the overall skills, like learning to be a press operator. Maybe we're just getting some slight help. Maybe they already work in that department and you're just showing them a new kind of task, which isn't really going to equate to, you know, a big raise or something. So we want to focus on being positive, okay? So this could be just public acknowledgement. It could be a raise, of course, but it could also be maybe they get a half day off on a Friday that's paid, or maybe you buy them a Subway sandwich or a pizza or something. It could be all kinds of different things, you know? So it's just one of these things where always look for what would make a difference with your employees, because, you know, every shop is different, every group is different. And so find those carrots that's going to get people interested. So after they complete a training section, you know, something happens that's positive to them, they're more apt to do it again, right? So, but it doesn't always have to be about money, right? I want to make sure that your training is part of their performance review. Personally, I like to do performance reviews every 6 months. And then at the end of the session is a goal session that we list at least 3 goals. You know, 1's okay, but 3's better, about what this employee is going to do in the next 6 months to get better. And then when we have another review and 6 months later, we talk about, did we achieve those goals or not? Okay. And then not every performance review has to be about a raise or money. A lot of it needs to be about what they're actually doing, right? Are they adding value to your company or not? Are they growing as an employee or not? And are they solving problems for you? For example, you know, maybe you need help in shipping occasionally because you're super busy, or maybe you need somebody to, maybe you do a lot of drop ships, right? And you need somebody that's going to learn how to segregate all of those garments and put them in the right boxes with the right addresses from the Excel file. You know, you can't just be one person, you need 2 or 3 people. So that could be part of their goal. That could be part of their performance review, that they learn this or they're going to learn it. And so it's all about getting people situated so they're looking ahead, they've got some goals, and they're achieving them, okay? When we do stuff, when we complete training, or maybe even when we're in the middle of the training, we want to make sure we're always publicly thanking our employees that are learning something new. Okay, so when you have an employee meeting, maybe you have an employee lunch, or maybe you do it once a month with birthdays, or however you do it in your shop, okay, you want to make sure you publicly thank the people who are spending extra time and brain power learning new skills, okay? Because the more that you do this, the more they're going to want to do it again. And this is going to instill a learning culture in your shop, okay? So when everybody in your business is always learning things new, what's going to happen is your employees are going to feel more engaged. They're going to, they feel happier and more confident about their jobs. They feel more secure. They feel more valuable. There's just overall a great morale booster when you get a learning culture. You know, I've talked to shop owners before. I remember talking to this one guy in Mississippi or Louisiana or somewhere, and he had this crazy attitude that everybody in his company needed to learn all these skills on their own, that he was too busy to teach them this stuff. And so what happened is the reason he called me was because he was having a huge problem with quality control, and he wanted to know how to fix it. And I'm like, well, what type of training are you doing? That's the first thing I would look at, because, you know, quality is all about doing things the right way. And if everybody doesn't know how to do that, of course, it makes sense you're going to have quality issues. And he just didn't see it that way. And so I was just shaking my head the whole time I was talking to him. So when you instill a learning culture in your shop, you're going to get people who really want to learn, they really want to progress, and they're just happy to be there. And that's great. So I included this quote just really for that one guy, right? So whether you think you can or you can't, you are right. And Henry Ford said this. And this is really about having the right mental attitude about things, right? So if you don't think you can learn to ship with UPS, with WorldShip, or you don't think that you can learn how to rethread an embroidery machine, or you don't think you can learn how heat press works, you know, with the temperature and hot or cold peel or whatever, you know, you're going to be right. If you've got the attitude that, you know what, I think I can learn this. This isn't that hard. You're going to break it up in little chunks for me. Guess what? You're right as well. So you just have to pick which direction you are, you know. Well, how does your shop think about this stuff? How do your employees think about this stuff? When you use the power of stories, remember, everybody sees that, oh, Susie learned this, I can learn that. And so it's like one of these things where you're showing them the ropes, you're showing them the journey. They're more apt to think positively about learning something new, and that's really half the battle. So let's talk about trainers, right? So the first thing is that not everyone is going to be a good teacher, all right? So if you remember, everybody's been in school, right? Your favorite teachers were what? They were patient, they had a sense of humor, they really loved showing you stuff, okay? So think about the people that you might have in your company who are going to be these teachers and these mentors, right? Do they have those attributes? You know, are they just a kind of a jerk, or maybe they're shy, or maybe they're just kind of a robot. They don't have much personality, and that's the person you're going to designate as the trainer, right? You might not have a good training program just because of that. So you might have employees who really want to learn, but the people you've selected to be the teachers aren't really good teachers. So one of the first things you want to look at is who is going to be doing this training. You know, it doesn't always have to be you, but you need to figure out who in your company really has kind of the capacity to be a good teacher. You know, have they demonstrated that before? Do they work with maybe your new people or your temps anyway and kind of show them the ropes? Those are great teachers. The people who I'm too busy, or they're very standoffish, or maybe they're, you know, always seem to be upset or whatever, those usually don't make good teachers. So you really want to find somebody that you think will be a good teacher. That's really important. The next thing is, for trainers, you have to be very specific and give the expectations of what you want. So at the beginning of the program, after you write down what you want to train and maybe who's going to be doing it, you need to have a meeting with these people you've selected to be the teachers, and you need to be very specific about what we're going to be doing is we're breaking things up into small chunks. For example, my press operator example, the first day we're just going to show them how to load a shirt. Next is going to be maybe ink or squeegees or whatever it is, right? So you're very specific about what you're doing. You're giving them the expectations of what is going to be taught, and you're showing them this is only going to be for a little short duration. It's only 10 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it's going to be. And then they know what has to happen. And then you also tell them how that they're going to decide that the person they're training understands and has a really good grasp on the material that they're teaching them. Are you going to have a test, right? Show me 10 times in a row that you can load a shirt. And if you can't do that, then you don't pass to the next level, okay? So you're very specific about how these teachers are operating. The next thing is that trainers have to learn also. So it's really important that you communicate to everyone that you're going to help them become better teachers or better coaches, and then you're going to give them some tools, and some tools are going to be just reviewing, to be patient. Here's some language you can use. Here's some examples. Let me show you the technique. Maybe you discuss what your shop way is, so it's not just how this person does it, but you want to be very specific about how your shop is doing each of these tasks. You have to develop that, and then you're going to train your trainer into exactly how we want you to teach our new people how to load a shirt, or what squeegees to use, or how to lower the temperature on the dryer for polyester, or whatever you're teaching. Okay, so you develop this material, and then you have to train the trainer on how to do it. Okay, so that's another thing that you need to consider is who's doing that, how are you doing it, how are you working that into your calendar, is this written down in a notebook, that type of stuff. All right, so, and also let's not forget to thank and publicly acknowledge our trainers, just like the people who are learning, the students. We also need to thank our teachers, our coaches, because it's very important, because it's really stressful to do this type of stuff, because they're always thinking I'm training my replacement and then something's going to happen to me. Okay, so you need to get that out of the way, that you're just trying to get more knowledge in your employees, and having more people learning these skills means that we can do more, that you can have a vacation and there's no drop off. There's all kinds of things, but you need to make sure that you're saying, hey, thanks, Bill. I really appreciate what you've done. You've trained Fred. He's awesome. You do this publicly in front of everybody. Bill thinks he's done a good job, and everything is just great. The next thing is that you can incentivize or reward the trainer. So maybe at the end of the training, right, you give the guy $500, or you give him a free day off, or you buy the guy lunch, or a 6-pack of beer, or whatever you want to do. Okay, you incentivize and reward that. Hey, thank you so much for doing this. You did a really great job, and here's what came out of it. I would suggest a handwritten note, a handwritten thank you card, or something, maybe something included. If you're doing a bonus or something, maybe you do that with a little card and you put that with your paycheck. So when you do stuff like this, it really makes the person feel great, and it's just a really nice thing to do. Of course, you don't have to do that. You can certainly just say thank you and be done with it. So it's really up to you how you want to do it. But what I found is that when we have people training others, when we incentivize them by giving them a bonus or some sort of monetary or tangible thing, they appreciate it more and are more apt to be a coach later on. So let's quickly review what we talked about. First is this phrase: you don't get paid by the hour, you get paid by the value you bring to the hour. And I've managed I don't know, hundreds of thousands of employees over the years, and everybody all the time always has their hand out. They always want to raise, and a lot of people, it's, I've been here 5 years. That's what they'll tell you. And so my rebuttal to that was always about performance. And I read this a while ago, and I really liked this quote because it's really true. So it's not so much what you're doing during the hour, it's the value that you're bringing the company, right? So if you learn this skill, then the company can move forward faster and we can achieve our goals. You're a more valuable employee. Of course, I'm going to give you more money. Okay. So I really love this quote, and it works great when you're doing performance reviews and people are talking about they want more money and maybe they really haven't earned it. So make sure that you write this down and you use it. So let's talk about things. So the reason we're doing training is it's all about growth. We want to get to the next level. And by instilling a training program, what happens is that you will be able to grow your own great employees in-house with the people that you have, rather than trying to find that press operator or that embroidery trimmer or that salesperson or that shipping clerk. So we're growing our own and using the people who really already know our customers. They know how we do things. They know our systems. We're comfortable with them. And so it's really great when we do a training program, just because as companies, we always want to grow and get better. You want to break content into small chunks. Okay, so don't show them the whole entire world at once. Just show them little tiny content that they can digest. It makes sense to them. They retain it, and then you go on to the next thing. So let's say you're training somebody that takes 20 things. Okay, there's 20 steps. So they learn their first one, and then they got it. They learn then they do the first one, and then they do the second one. So maybe they load the shirt on the press, and then they print it. The next thing is going to be doing a multicolor, or maybe we learn how to do flash, or maybe we learn how to mix ink, or maybe we graduate to the auto press, and there's all those things. So you're breaking content into small chunks so people can learn every little bit as they go, and it's just easier to learn. Hands-on works best, so make sure they have time driving the car. You can't be a press operator or an embroidery operator or a customer service rep unless you're actually doing the work, so you need time doing that. You need to figure out your incentives and how you're going to give them the reasons why they need to get this training, because they're going to be more motivated and engaged as employees if you do things this way. You need to make sure that your trainers are trained, and that's about it. So it's time for questions. So I would love for you guys to use the question and answer section and submit your questions. I'm happy to answer them when they come in. If I don't get to your question, please email me at marshall@inksoft.com, and I'm happy to answer your question just one-on-one. So here's the first question is from Rob Carhart. Can you speak a little on long-term employees becoming complacent in their performance, even if it is consistently adequate? Also breaking long-term bad habits. So that's really kind of two questions, but let's talk about complacent employees. The first thing you got to do is you have to challenge people. And so I don't know, Rob, how Rob does his employee reviews, but that's why I like doing things every 6 months. A lot of people do annual reviews, or they just don't do a review unless the employee asks for it, which is even worse. So what happens is we kind of get off track on things. The reason I like doing reviews every 6 months is, personally, can you remember what you were doing on June 22nd of last year? Probably not. Okay, but you remember what you were doing in December. Okay, so it's like one of these things, when we do it 6 months, every 6 months, it's easy to break that up, and then we can talk about the things that we want them to learn. Okay, so complacent employees, okay, or people who are just kind of stuck in a rut, they don't really have a growth plan. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to have a conversation with these folks and find out what will make them happy? What will set their sail? You know, for like an artist, they just kind of hump through things and they design, okay? So what will get you re-engaged so you're designing more creative work, okay? What if we challenge them to use less colors, or to use 4-color process, or maybe we need to learn how to do things differently, or whatever, okay? So you're working on these goals and you're setting the goals for them, but also what you're going to do is you're going to give them a training for that, okay? So maybe it's simulated process. Maybe they're complacent just doing regular old spot color and placing objects as a left chest, and they don't want to learn all this stuff, but you need to give them the tools and an opportunity to do that. You know, if they're press operators or printers, it's the same thing. You know, so can you increase your production speed? Can you lower your downtime? Can you learn how to print with a softer hand? Excuse me. Or what can you do? You have to challenge people. Challenging gets people out of the complacency kind of rut and focuses their attention on achieving some sort of goal that you can mutually set. It doesn't have to just drop down from Mount Olympus. Sorry, I had to get some water. All right. So, and then just, what was the other thing? Also, breaking long-term bad habits. You have to define what that bad habit is. So, for instance, let's say a bad habit is after lunch, they don't come back from their break quickly, and it takes a while to get going. That's certainly a bad habit, okay? First, you have to define what the what do you want to see? What is the expectation? So the expectation is if lunch ends at 12:30, right? At 12:30, they're at their workstation, not 12:31, not 12:37, at 12:30. So you have to give them the opportunity to change. You have to show them what they need to do. You also have to maybe make it easy. So at 12:25, an audible bell or something rings. They'll let everybody in the building know, hey, you got 5 minutes to clean up your mess, go to the bathroom, and report to your press. So when we do stuff like that, we're giving the expectation that we want, we're showing them that how we want to do it, and then we're giving them a clue, hey, with the bell, that you need to wrap things up. But the next thing is we need to hold them accountable, okay, which means if you don't do it right, something happens. Maybe there's some disciplinary action. You know, if the tiger doesn't have any teeth, nobody's ever scared of the tiger. So to break bad habits, we have to show people what we want to do, train them on it, and then we need to hold them accountable. Okay, so hopefully that answered your question. All right, so just scanning through here. Oh, somebody came in at the end of the discussion of the 3-person rule. Can you give a quick recap of that? Real quickly, any important task in your company, you should have at least 3 people who are competently trained on how to do it. That could be, how do you ship to Canada? How do you invoice? How do you set up a job? How do you mix ink? How do you, whatever, how do you quote, you know? And quoting is a big one because usually only the owner knows how to quote, or only the sales guy knows how to quote. You know what? If the customer service reps know how to quote as well, then you're not so dependent on just one person doing it, and you need to make sure that everybody knows how to do it the same way, right? So when you have 3 people, the 3-person rule, that means that people can go on vacation, you can fire them, they can call in sick, whatever, you've got coverage. Okay, so list all your critical tasks in your shop. What are they? Only you know that. What are they? And then make sure you've got 3 people trained to do every single one of them. All right. So where's the next question? What level of importance? Hey, Rob's asking lots of questions. What level of importance would you place on cross-training all employees? Do you have any tips or advice? Yes, cross-train everyone. I think it's great to cross-train people. I love cross-training. I think it's wonderful when somebody that works in production can check in goods and receiving, because maybe you just got a huge delivery, okay, and you can pull a catcher off a press and they can go over there and count and enter everything into your system. Or maybe you've got 4 or 5 people who know how to mix ink, so you're not just reliant on one ink mixer. Or maybe somebody in embroidery can work in screen printing and vice versa. So when those departments get really busy, you can throw more people at the problem, and you can get everything completed on the day that it's supposed to complete, rather than just being dependent on the one work group or two work groups that you have. Okay, cross training is awesome. So if you use this plan where you give people the opportunity to get that training by scheduling it, okay, that's how you can do that, right? So you first off identify what you need, and then find the people and then train them. Okay, so cross training is awesome. I'm a huge believer in that. Do you find any value in Allison Banholzer asks, do you find any value in outsourcing training, for example, art and learning software? What are the deciding factors for outsourcing? Well, maybe you don't have the skill. Okay, there's plenty of consultants out there, and some are really awesome. You guys know who they are, that can come into your shop and teach your printers how to print better, or teach your artists how to design or use or do a simulated process, or can teach people how to do whatever. A lot of your vendors, for instance, your ink reps, they have this knowledge. They'll come in your shop and they'll show you how to coat screens. They'll show you how to print on polyester. They'll show you how to use their products. Okay, that's wonderful training to get. Okay, not to mention trade shows. You're outsourcing your training by going to a trade show seminar. You know, I teach at ISS. So it's like one of these things when you take classes, okay, you're getting that training, and then you're a much more valuable employee, and maybe you're getting the training on stuff that your shop doesn't currently have, and then you can train all the people to know how to do it. I know there's tons of companies that do Photoshop and Illustrator training. There's you go to lynda.com, that's lynda.com, and they've got great training on art computer software. So it's like, and like, for instance, InkSoft, you know, you can, we've got our Success Squad will happily show you how to do whatever you need. You can always get the training. You just have to really be brave enough to raise your hand and ask and say, hey, I need some help. Can you show me how to do this? A lot of times it's free. You just have to look for it. Okay, so, Meryl McDowell asks, I don't know who the consultants are. Could you give me more info on this resource? Well, for instance, I do shop coaching on workflow, employee motivation, all this stuff. If you would like more, you can certainly contact me. I'll happily get back with you on that. But for like printing, you can look at Lon Winters or Charlie Toblieb. For embroidery, I'm sorry, my mind's blank here, but you can find the embroidery coaches. There's a her last name is Jagger. It's not, but anyway, you can find coaches out there. Go to LinkedIn. You can also just type in Google, you know, I need an embroidery coach or a business coach, and you can find that. In any local community, there's usually consultants that banks and stuff run. It's called SCORE, SCORE, and they'll help you run your business better. Okay, so you can find consultants out there. You just have to kind of look for your Chamber of Commerce for consultants for your business, and also lots of, you know, Sanmar has some great help there. You can go to their website. They've got a whole list of consultants at their information page. So maybe that can help you. All right, okay, this is gonna be a last question. Let me see if I can find a good one here. Okay, here's a great one. Okay, this is gonna be a last question. So if I didn't answer yours, please just email me at marshall@inksoft.com. The question is, do you recommend training chronologically by process or by ease of task? Do it in the order of process or from the easiest task to hardest task? Well, you know, it really depends on the task, but I wouldn't throw trigonometry at somebody until they learn how to add. Okay. So what I mean by that is, you got to do the basic stuff first to get to the more complex things. Okay. In anything. So maybe if you're learning how to put an order in the system, what's the first step? Is to go bring up the order template, how you do it, or look at the customer's PO or that kind of thing. Second step is whatever. Okay. So you do things in steps. And I'm a big believer in doing things chronologically because it makes sense. Okay. But if you're cross training, maybe somebody already has some skill, so when you think about like college, you can kind of clap out of classes if you already can prove that you know things. So you don't necessarily have to start from the basic beginning just because you're starting a training program. If you kind of already know a bunch of this stuff, you can maybe skip to the fourth or fifth thing or whatever. So, I think in this type of case, it makes sense to really look at your employee and see what their skill sets are, and have they demonstrated this knowledge, and are they already proficient at it? And if they are, they give them a pass on a couple of these things. But at the same time, it doesn't hurt to review the basics, because remember, we want to be training in how your shop does it. So maybe they're a veteran employee from somewhere else, and you want to show them how you want to do it. Okay. So it's really important that, for instance, let's say screen printing a t-shirt for a full front, your shop, it's always 3 inches from the collar to the top of the art. All right. But maybe somebody else does it, it's 4 inches. You want to show them, this is 3 inches. This is why we do it. This is our shop standard. So even though they maybe already know it, you're showing them how you do it so they get that training. So maybe that helps. Okay, so lastly, I want to talk about the InkSoft Production Manager tool. This is kind of what I've been doing here. If you haven't heard, we're developing a new tool that's going to allow shops to automatically schedule their work. And this is going to be a standalone piece of software, so you can use any other software that you have. You don't necessarily have to use InkSoft. And so it's really going to be a great tool. We're a long way away from publishing this, but this is what we're doing. I would really like feedback from you guys on what makes sense for your shop. So if you go to this website, inksoft.com/production-manager, there's a little section there where you can give me your top 3 things that are your biggest challenges. This goes straight to our development team. So we're keeping a huge list of these things so we can make sure that our software tool addresses this functionality that you need in your shops. Everybody runs their shops differently. So I'm not going to assume that I know everything. So I really like your feedback. So if you would go here, sign up for it, you'll get all the latest updates for it, and then give us your top 3 things. That'd be great. That's awesome. So just remember, any questions, just email me at marshall@inksoft.com. I'm happy to help you. So that concludes today's webinar. Thank you so much for attending. I appreciate your time, and I'll talk to you next time. Thanks. Bye.